Do you want to see the most futuristic reloading press on the market today? I think the answer is yes. Gavin Gear here from UltimateReloader.com. I'm deep in the heart of the Lyman facility here in Connecticut with Spencer Carroll, who's a design engineer. Spencer, thanks for joining me.
Good to see you.
We're going to talk about Mark 7 reloading.
Yep. Super excited to announce earlier this year that Mark 7 is now a Lyman company. It's a Lyman part of our brand. And really excited to show you the two main products that they have in their line.
Now, this is a pretty interesting story.
Yes.
Because the company was only started about, 3 years ago?
Yeah. Well, Mark 7 started 3 to 4 years ago. It started out of a need of they needed an auto drive for the Dillon products. That product came to market. It was successful. And the next step, logistical step, was to build their own presses. So behind me here, we have the Revolution, and also next to us, we have the Evolution. We're gonna go over both of them, what makes them different, what makes them special, and really what sets them apart in the market.
So why don't we start on the manual drive side? Show me the Evolution.
Sure.
So this is the Evolution.
This is the Evolution. This is our 10-station progressive press. It's set up kind of in its most basic configuration with a mechanical powder measure, an 11-inch case feeder, and a Mr. Bullet feeder. It features stack priming. This is really kind of the most basic way to get into the Mark 7 product line. This press is fully CNC machined, jewelry-like actions, extremely smooth. This press also has the ability to add one of Mark 7's auto drives down the road. So it's a perfect press to get your hands on a premium 10-station progressive press, and down the road you want to automate it, you fully are able to.
I know this is kind of a rocky display, but I'm going to actually actuate the press here.
Yep.
It is absolutely super smooth.
Yeah, it's the first time I actually was able to operate one of these in my hands, and I'd only seen the press automated beforehand, and I was able to touch the manual press and feel how smooth it is. You can really tell the construction, the quality, the fit and finish that's in this press. It's second to none.
10 stations, so you've got plenty of different options for things like swaging and all of the sensors. So you could basically equip this like a Revolution. It would just have a separate auto drive rather than being the integrated direct drive kind of a unit. Is that right?
Once you set your Evolution up as an Evolution Pro per se with an auto drive setup, you now have the ability to add all Mark 7's patented sensors, which we'll go over in a little bit. But as it sits now, you have the ability to do one-pass reloading. You don't have to combine any stations. You don't even need to combine your case flare and your powder measure. You can do everything separately. You have tons of flexibility. And even on this press, we have 2 empty stations. So we have the ability to do more.
What's interesting is the powder measure. This is a CNC machined body. It's got dual ball bearings that are supporting the drum. It's a drum type measure, which I actually prefer because I find they throw a more consistent charge. And it's got a very generous hopper capacity. And this is case activated, correct?
Case activated. Multiple different funnels that come with the measure depending on kind of what you're doing. It's, once again, just like the press, extremely smooth, extremely jewelry-like. All these components, they're all CNC machine, bearings. It's very, very smooth.
Very good. So this is for someone that wants to get into Mark 7 technology, but maybe with a more incremental approach to potentially adding stuff down the line.
Yes, the Mark 7 system as it is very a la carte. You can take systems off of the press, change them out. Powder measures obviously can be changed, but things such as priming systems, completely modular, case feeders, bullet feeders, it's all meant to be able to be changed down the road. If you buy one of the Mark 7 products, you're not stuck in the configuration that you buy it in.
Yeah.
You can change it.
Very cool. And earlier you were showing me the caliber changeover. You've got one giant bolt here and the whole head comes off. Is that right?
Tool heads come off. Think of it kind of as a turret press. Tool heads are sold separately if you want to do that way. Usually kind of the volume guys that know what calibers they're doing will have separate tool heads set up. One bolt, tool head comes off. Take this giant nut off here in the bottom, shell plate comes off, put your new shell plate on, set your powder measure, set your dies, you're ready to go.
Yep. So a lot of competitive shooters are using these. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of 9, 45 ACP, probably 223. Any other popular calibers that rise to the top?
The opening for this press is compatible up to cases up to 308.
Okay.
Even go down 380. You can do your revolver calibers, stuff like that. But you can go up to 308 in its current configuration.
Very cool. Okay, so this is the core technology here.
Yes, sir.
This is the Evolution. Tell me about the Revolution.
The Revolution is on itself just that. It's taking everything, let's say this is a 6 or a 7, this cranks it up to 11. This press, as you see it here, is the Mac Daddy. It's configured as high as you can go. It's a 14-inch case feeder, Mr. Bullet Feeder Pro, our digital activated powder measure, collated priming. This is probably the biggest add-on compared to this press, where any Dillon owner, any other sort of progressive owner knows that keeping your primer tubes full is probably your biggest headache. This collated priming system holds roughly 600 to 700 primers.
Wow.
And it completely dump them in, turn it on. It'll fill the tube all the way down here, and it keeps a nice separate primer disc. It turns on and off as you need it. It's just kind of just like your case feeder. You set it, when it flips its micro switch, it turns off.
So you don't need kids to load your primers for you, right?
Yes.
It's the biggest pain in reloading.
It is. And the biggest thing is it makes sure the primers are also all the right way, and it's visible. You can see exactly what's going on. You can see where your primers are. And actually, this has the ability with simply just taking out this plug and putting this little nipple on, you could unload the whole system.
Oh, nice.
So it's for changing from largest to small. You want to unload, or say you're going from a different brand to another. You want to keep it separate. There is the ability to simply just unplug this, recycle the press, and shuttle all your primers out.
What I'm also noticing here is that a lot of you are familiar with the Dillon telephone dial, right? It's a dial about that big, and it's got adjacent primer holes in it. And one of the risks with that type of a design is one primer goes off, and then you have kind of a chain reaction. Here we have a really generous distance between each of the primers on the disc, so I imagine that would be impossible in this case, where you have all the mechanical action happening, right? That's the high risk areas where the priming is going on.
There's a lot of stuff going on, and as I always say, when you start progressive reloading and then you automate your progressive reloading, you have the opportunity, your danger factor goes up. You need to know what you're doing, you need to make sure everything is safe and all that. So is this a little larger than it has to be from a safety perspective? Sure, but I think it's generous at that point.
Better safe than sorry, right? Yes. Okay, so I'm thinking two things. One, this is set up for 9 right now.
Yes.
Why don't you walk us through all of the different stations and the different sensors, and then we're going to do a kind of a live demo of loading ammo. Obviously, that's what we're here to do.
That's what we're here.
You guys have a gun range here, right?
We do.
So what do you think we load some ammo and then we shoot it?
We're going to take some ammo. We're going to make sure it passed all its tests, and it's going to go to the range.
Okay, so walk us through the stations here. We got 10 stations. It looks like. Is there ever a die over the priming station there?
You could. It gives you flexibility. Some people like to hold down when they prime. Some people that are very, very critical in their primer depth, you're going to have a little bit of shuck of the case in the shell holder. So holding down that case is going to give you that ability to get you precise primer depths. Starting off here, I just have a carbide size die.
Actually, let's talk about the case feed here real quick, because it's got this interesting full use support and a little spring on the side. So you might have, with some case feeders, had a case bounce and then fly out of the off of the slide, or other kinds of misfeeds. And this looks pretty cool because it's almost like you've got a little hand pushing the case in, and then it works its way by the spring. I like that.
When you are progressive reloading, you have your restrictions, and when you automate, you create even more problems for yourself.
Because you're going up to 2,500.
Yeah, usually you could load up to 2,500 rounds per hour, but you can case prep up to 3,500 rounds per hour in this press, and this thing is really moving. You need to be able to support that case as much as you can, so you don't have jams, you don't have cases pop out of your shell holders. You want to be as supported as you can. So that's why this is a whole U shape with a spring. It comes over, and then it's actually captured by a whole spring up against the shell holder.
Kind of, if you're familiar with the Hornady lock and load AP, it's kind of a similar spring thing. And the nice thing about that is that you can remove and reinsert a case at any station. So if you need to check for something, or if you noticed a problem, this machine has all the sensors, so it's going to be able to stop itself. It's like having mobility. It feels good to be able to just, have the freedom to do that.
But I'll go over all the dies that I have here, where I have them set up, why I have them where I do, and then I'll go over all the sensors and what they're doing to help me load. So starting in the beginning, just a standard carbide size die. I have a D-primer in it, but I have primer rod in it, but I am using new brass. Going next, I have a hold down die. Next, that's going to go into our swaging tool, which I'll talk about here in a minute. I have a dead station here. You can hold down if you prime. You have the ability to do some other things. You can case flare here. You can do kind of what you want. Next go over, I have a case flare, usually done in the powder measure, but since I have 10 stations, I took it out of the powder measure, and now it's on its own. I have much more adjustment with it. I can really fine tune how it is. Coming over next, I have our digital powder measure. which we have set up. It's case activated. Will only throw when it sees a case. And it can also just be simply flipped off. So if you're just running cases around, want to keep the powder measure in, it won't turn on or off.
So this actually has a servo motor on it.
Yes.
And it's got a belt drive. You can't see it behind that cover there.
Yep.
And what's cool about this, and you're obviously going to demo this when we load, is that it's not just a mechanical action with linkage. That all of the different speeds and positions can be optimized for how the powder is going to get staged and then fall down the funnel and all of that, which is really cool.
Yeah, the awesome thing with that being is that it's a servo motor is you can use that to your advantage and speed up certain areas and slow down certain areas that you want to make sure that all your powder has gone into the case at the right time. Going over after that, I have a digital powder sensor, which I'll go over here in a minute. I have my bullet dropper from my Mr. Bullet Feeder Pro. I have a seat die and I have a crimp die. Automated reloading is really the best you can do, but when you have your sensor technology with you, it gets you more sets of eyes. So going around this press, what we have, this is our digital decap sensor. What that's gonna do is every single time that, if you're using once fired brass or range brass, like most people are, it's going to detect that a spent primer has come down, broken a beam, and has passed down through the tube. So that knows that you're not gonna come down after the fact and try to prime a case that already has a primer in it.
Yeah.
Coming down next is our swage sense. There's a little swage rod in here and it does two things. It detects for obstructions. So let's say if the primer for some reason didn't come out and it didn't pass the sensor, which it would have stopped the press anyway, but it would stop the press. Also too, what it'll do is it'll swage military crimps. That's its main goal.
That is beautiful.
Yes. It's mostly useful for 223 or 308 reloading, but it's nice just to touch that primer pocket and make sure that it's good.
Yeah, even if you've previously swaged your brass, you never know if you're shooting with friends, or you have range pickup. You don't know if one accidentally slips by, and then you're going to avoid any priming issues.
And it'll tell you if you have a ringer. And all these sensors, the whole point of them is that as soon as it detects a problem, doesn't matter where it is in its stroke, it stops the press. Coming over here, once we have the powder thrown, you want to make sure that your powder is right. When you have a case activated powder measure, it's pretty foolproof. You know that it's going to throw powder. Digital is a little different, but once after, there's a little rod that will actually tamp your powder charge, and you set this yourself. All these sensors come with instructions and tells you how to set them up. But there's two little light rods in there, and there's a little green area. So there's a no-go, a go, and a no-go.
Nice.
So you actually set it to where you're in the median of your actual powder charge. You have plus or minus 0.1, maybe 0.2 grains on either side. So it'll tell you if you have a double charge, it'll set the sensor off, or if you have an undercharge.
And with calibers like 45 ACP or 9mm, obviously double charges are a huge risk.
Yes.
Because there's so much case capacity, and the powder charges are so small. Sometimes you're down around 4 grains.
Yeah, so you could triple or quad charge and not overfill the case. So
it's the worst case scenario is a progressive that doesn't auto index.
Yes.
If something gets messed up, you get distracted, you can easily double stroke it, and then you have a double or triple charge, and then kaboom, right?
And that's one of the logics with this digital powder measure, with this whole control box. It will only throw every time that the shell plate is rotated. So if you put this thing up and down or try to activate it by hand, it will only go once. So that's kind of a fail-safe we have built into it. Coming down next, one of the next kind of finicky things when you're progressive reloading is your bullet drop, because you're just kind of butlering that case nightly up and it's dropping a bullet onto your case. Well, coming down here, we have something called bullet sense. It's a light sensor, and what it does is it looks for a bullet dropped in the right location. If anything is not right, it'll stop the press. It'll notice if a bullet is upside down, if it's not there, if it's a little cockeyed, because you set it so it's right on the tip of the bullet. That's kind of its good position. So if it's any sort of leaning any way, it's going to throw the sensor.
And as you know and I know, setting your case mouth expansion is one of these things that's going to affect how a bullet feeder is going to work, how the bullet is going to sit. Different bullets sit different ways. They have different center of gravities depending on the weight of the bullet. And you're going to be pushing the limits of what's possible with that indexing action.
Yes, and not only does it happen if a bullet doesn't drop completely right or doesn't drop at all, but sometimes you say you're running this thing a little bit too faster than you should, your bullet can tumble. And there's some things in the press we'll go over here in a minute. But a big thing I want to tell people, and a big question I keep getting is, how do I set up my dies? And I've gotten this question a bunch of times at various shows with various people. If you know how to set up your dies on a single stage or a turret press or a 550 or a 650, you know how to set up your dies. There's no difference.
Sure.
It's simple fundamentals that'll get you through.
So that's all of the stations.
Yep.
That's all of the sensors. I love the fact that you have 10 stations. I mean, it's just completely set up any way that you want it to get set up. Why don't we see this machine in use, and let's look at a couple different scenarios for maybe different loading speeds.
Sure. So before we go in the full-fledged automated reloading, let me just show you the process a little bit in action here. So full tablet control.
And this is an Android tablet that comes with the machine?
Android tablet that comes with the machine. It's programmed and all proprietary software. It's all kind of running their own OS at this point. Every time the machine comes on, I've already had it done, you're going to calibrate the machine. What's going to happen is you're going to press calibrate, the machine's going to come up, it's going to come down, and then it's going to home itself. But now it knows where it is at all times. So now if I press single cycle, so that's the press running at 2,000 rounds per hour speed.
Wow.
What just happened was every single station happened. We dropped another case, powder measure went, bullet dropper dropped a bullet, and we came out with finished piece of ammo. This press is completely able to be modularly set up. You can change how the shell plate indexes. You can change how it dwells at the top, dwells at the bottom, or even how the tool head comes down or how it slows down at the bottom.
So what drives the indexing? Is that a mechanical cam as the RAM is going up and down, or is that driven independently with a different motor?
It's driven off of the RAM itself. There's a little arm that comes up and a mechanical index pawl that'll come over, and it's a big piece of steel, and it comes over and it grabs a shell plate and clicks it over once.
So if you want to change the way it's indexing, you change the speed of the RAM in that critical region then? Okay.
It changes it in a certain place.
Gotcha.
So now let me actually run this thing just full tilt.
We're going at 2,000 right now.
It's 2,000 rounds per hour. You could change it as you're going. I'm going now down to 1,000, which is pretty funny because it seems slow at this point.
Yeah.
Kick it up to 2,500.
Notice how this is stopping in the middle too. And that's to stage the powder drop, is that right?
So it's kind of butlering the powder measure. It knows where it's about to throw, so it gives it all the time for that powder to come down.
Yeah.
So now I can show you. So I just turned my bottom slow down.
Oh, wow.
That's really great for if you're doing case trimming or something like that on press. I can change my index speed. Now I've changed the rate that the shell plate is actually moving. So I'm going to end my cycle. It's going to stop wherever it's at. You have the full ability as well to set how many rounds you want to load. So say I want to do 1,000 rounds. You could type 1,000 rounds in here and it'll stop when it's at 1,000. This press, since my last reset on it, I've made 5,600 rounds of 9mm. And actually, when this thing is running, it'll show you your effective rounds per hour. So now I have the press running at 2,000 rounds per hour, but I have my index speed set at a slower pace. Now if I actually go into my monitors, it's letting me know that my effective rounds per hour are actually 1,850. Because since you've slowed that down, now you're not reloading at full tilt.
Sure.
I always joke, the biggest problem with these presses is keeping everything full.
Yeah.
You run out of primers, bullets, and powder very quickly.
You know, what is really interesting to me about this is that you know the limitations of designing a machine that's purely mechanical, right?
Yes.
All the linkages have different camming effects and, you know, different speeds and different trade-offs between leverage and the throw of a different thing. With everything electronic like that, you can take what you naturally do on a progressive press. I slow down at the very bottom, let the index happen, and then prime on multiple presses. And you learn the rhythm, right? Well, here you can actually set the rhythm, and it's the same every time.
Yeah, the Mark 7 team did a phenomenal job. This product was designed and built before we acquired the company. Anthony, Paul, Marty, they thought of everything. And they really used and they leveraged the competitive shooter aspect that they all know and really made the perfect kind of press.
Love it. Speaking of competitive shooters, we've made some 9mm ammo now. Look at this.
The bin fills up awfully quickly.
Behold the beauty. Oh, Starline brass. How many grain bullets are these?
124s.
124s.
And we can go over to our Lyman 9mm ammo checker block and make sure that this stuff fits and drops in nicely, which it drops in absolutely beautiful.
I think we should do one better. What if we head over to the range here and actually do some real shooting? We've got the ammo.
Don't have to ask me twice. Let's go.
Do you have to clock out for this, or?
It's one of the reasons I took the job, Gavin.
You got the best job in the world. All right, let's do it.
Let's go.
So this is where the work happens, is that right?
This is the fun part of my job, Gavin.
So you guys do testing. You actually do load development testing for the books here, is that right?
This is our indoor range. It's a 25-yard range. This is where all the load development's done for the lineman manuals that everyone's so familiar with. But also on lunch breaks and before and after work, we get to come and shoot.
That is a good perk. So show me what we got here.
So first off, we got the pile of ammo that we just made with that new brass and the heads that we had. We have a converted Glock 23 to 9mm. We have a Connecticut 9mm other from New Frontier, and we have an MCK with a Glock 19 inside of it.
Let's shoot up some of that ammo.
That's why we make it.
So that was fun.
I can't say I don't like my job.
Being able to load ammo on site and then being able to shoot right here, totally awesome.
It's the perfect development tool.
Thank you, Spencer, for showing me a good time and
No
telling
problem,
me
man.
about the products, dude.
No problem, dude.
Awesome. And another question for you all. Do you want to see more Mark 7 stuff? Please leave a comment below. Till next time, happy shooting and happy reloading.